Okay, no worries.
Unless you want to put your lamp on.
Okay, that
We
was
have a
good.
light when we go down.
Okay, no
Okay,
worries.
so very quickly, um, the reason I did the wall is because the students weren't getting what I thought they should get here in Ghana in their curriculum. It was absolutely terrible. No African history, nothing. So I said, after going around, forget it. I'll even make a wall, bring them here on excursion field trips.
Right
So
on.
that's what I've been doing for 5 years. And everybody thinks it's a tourist place. It's not a
Yeah,
tourist place. I'm happy when people come, but if no one came and the children came, I still have a successful operation
right on.
for me. Now, everybody else has their own reasons.
Right.
Okay, so start off over here with Apoka Kanyani. She was a woman, Frafra woman from the north. What she was known for is for using her pestle to kill some of the slavers, traders who came in, which made her place an inhospitable place to stay. So she's a hero in the north.
Right.
Mukere, which is in Bogatenga. Uh, for the children, Queen T, ancient Kemet being a black civilization. This is when I introduced them to the whole concept of black civilization. Tell them
Uh-huh.
something about her in the 18th dynasty. Marcus Garvey, of course, Up You Mighty Race,
Right on. Accomplishment
which
for real.
most people don't know anything about him, but they're learning. We're getting
Right
Kwame
on.
Nkrumah. They already know, but I have this quote up here about how influenced he was by Marcus Garvey, just to put
Uh-huh.
Garvey in some kind of context. So, and they say he had more influence than Hegel, Marx, and all the rest of them. Children don't always know that, but they know something was going on. Black
Yeah.
Star Line, all of these things that they thought came out of Nkrumah really came out of Garvey. So we're
Right
able to
on.
do that. Carbu, where's the Kobe? Okay. Okay, so he's getting it. All right, so we'll see y'all.
Dad, we will get car at the junction. Kobe is with us. So we'll rather get straight car to
You think
25.
you
Yes.
think so?
Yes. We can.
Are you sure?
Yes, we'll get.
Okay, so if you don't get it,
Then we'll call you.
then let me know.
Okay.
Ernest, they said they will get a car at the junction. They said they'll get car at the junction.
Oh,
So don't worry.
yeah. It's
Okay,
recording already.
let's keep moving.
And then this, that's okay. And then this button that you take a picture while you're filming.
Okay. Okay. So I have Jamaica. I have red, black, and green for Garvey. I got Ethiopia, and I have Ghana, just kind of representing the four corners of our existence. And start with E because we got to let you know that the humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens, which is our species, started about 200,000 years ago. No one left the African continent until 70,000 BC. For two-thirds of human history, nobody was anywhere in the world other than here. Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. These other great works by the Nigerian Igbo writer. So we have him there. Asa Hilliard was one of, you know Asa?
Yeah.
He's one of the ones that really started us down this journey. When I was like 19, I heard him, and it changed my direction. Very influential in my life. Yeah, Asante, well, of course, the great Ashanti Queen, struggling against the British. Gideon Samati, another one struggling against the British with the Kikuyu Land Freedom Party, Mau Mau, and Zinga, of course, fighting the Portuguese slave system back 500 years ago. Ajete, one of the soldiers who was shot. They went to get their just due from the British after they fought with them in World War II. British reneged on what it was they were supposed to do. These men marched on them here in Ghana. They were shot by a British major, killed, and it sparked the Accra riot, which was the beginning of the unraveling of the colonial order. So Objective was one of the heroes. Maurice Bishop from Grenada. Of course, you know, the Americans bombed them in 1980, destroyed that revolution of that little small country, mainly because they didn't want the example of a black Cuba, black
Right.
Castro.
Right on.
Amazon and Omatone warriors. These are the women in Dahomey, and which is Benin, which is, you know, they're warrior women who fought the British, the French and other ones, and they say they modeled the Black Panther warrior women after these women. Edward Wilmot Blyden out of Liberia, actually out of St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, and then made a career in Liberia, probably, arguably, the father of Pan-Africanism in Africa. So the Africans, all these early books, even before Garvey. So Leibniz, and then Steve Biko is when I introduced the children to South Africa. None of the children have ever heard of apartheid, so I have to start from scratch.
Wow.
Tell them about Biko and the anti-apartheid struggle. Black conscience movement, Sonan Ali, one of the great founders of the third, the great West African empire. This one being Songhai Johansen. I just mentioned the Amazon women. He was the leading fighter, foreign fighter against the French. Mary Makeba, who was kicked out because of her anti-apartheid activities. Singer, of course, at the Pata and all of it. Great
Right on.
and
Dessalines.
and Dessalines, Dessalines gave the natives their name, Haiti, back to them after the sent the domain by the French. George Washington Carver, the great agriculture genius of the day. Nyerere, of course, in Tanzania, who laid the foundation for a lot of East African things. Ephraim Mahmoud here in Ghana, he tried desperately to maintain African cultural integrity in the face of the British onslaught. Harriet Tubman, pulled him out. Samora Machel in Mozambique, a young warrior, a general who was able to fight against the Portuguese. Nana, Jamaica. Where are you from originally?
I'm from California. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but I have a lot of extended family that's from Jamaica. So when I first came here, a friend of mine.
Where in California?
Sacramento.
Okay, I was from Los Angeles. You know that.
Oh no, yeah, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Miss Lillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like my godmother.
Oh,
For years, Catherine Hall, and all them. Yeah, so people weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now in Jamaica, they were the Maroon Queen who established her own part, Haile Selassie, Rastafari, the Ake of the 25th dynasty, ancient Kemet, around 704, Shaka, the great Zulu warrior, Fannie Lou Hamer, because I have to explain to the children how we did not have the vote, did not have the franchise, how they felt with deeper and all that. They can't believe this stuff happens in America,
Yeah, I
how
know.
they're so socialized. Tugbe Sri from he's the airway chief, Tugbe, who brought a lot of the Anglo airways here to this part of Ghana, Togo, Tanzania, which is the Gamanche chief back to the turn of last century when they were struggling to maintain their integrity in the colonial upheaval. Minis, 3,100 BC, there have been some touch-ups, so you have to read that back in there. Of course, I like the children to see his face because this is the face of the first pharaoh, the first dynasty in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. And so this, of course, runs counter to all of the stuff in their magazines and all of their stuff. But I just tell them, look at that face because that's the real face. It's carved in big basalt stones, so we know it. Cabral, the great revolutionary from Guinea-Bissau, probably more than anyone, destroyed the Portuguese colonial empire in Africa by giving them whoopings and Guinea-Bissau, the great Imhotep, world's first multiple genius, third dynasty. Kemet, the great Kusama was pure, of course, the Haitian Revolution. Now, Bewa, if you come from the north, whether you're in Mkusi, the Gomba, Mushi, all the rest, most of them come down to the Nagbewa line here in Ghana. We'll say Tutu, the first Ashanti in Ghana, King of the Ashanti. Thomas Sankara, uncorruptible young man in Burkina Faso, just north of here, of course, assassinated.
I seen a special on him.
Oh, yeah. Upright man, that's the brother, That's the thing I was telling them. They corrupt African leaders. I said, but when we have that aren't corrupt, you go kill them.
Yeah.
So the ones you allowed to live are the corrupt ones, and then you tell us how we have corrupt leaders. So, really? You kill them if they're not. So what do you want us to do? Other than keep producing. Amena Reynolds, my sister here, back in Kush. Now this is 60 BC or so. When the Romans had taken over in Egypt, they decided to invade south to, expand. They went south, southern part of Egypt, northern Sudan today. They ran their Menelaus and her army. This is Caesar's army, the Roman army, but they tell all of our children in Ghana were the greatest army in the world. She gave them a whip and sent them back up into Egypt, and that area stayed more or less sovereign for another 300 years because her and the other Kandaki queens after her were able to maintain order. Menelik, the great Menelik of Ethiopia, of course, he was able to kick the Italians out, and so that's why they were the only ones not colonized by force. Great Malcolm X,
Yes,
a black Chinese prince.
that's right.
Titswell, South Africa, down the lineage of Shaka. Fought valiantly again against the British, Zulu Chief. But this is when the firepower overcame most of Akhenaten, father of monotheism, and so all of these so-called Abrahamic religions basically come down totally corrupted, I should add, from our spiritual tradition. The great Bob Marley, we know him. Wangari Maathai, the sister out of Kenya that won the Nobel Prize for all her ecological work.
Yes.
I really have her there more for her political outlook and attitude. She was really, really on target. I'd like to tell you more about the painter and all.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job.
Singbe Kid, we had in Sierra Leone, but the Amistad, the ship Amistad,
Yes.
when they escaped, he was basically leader of that revolt or that ship revolt. Fred Hampton, today why we were having the program.
Yeah, he was on the fire.
Fred Hampton Jr. was here today. He just left about an hour ago.
I know. Okay.
That's
I
why.
didn't see him in Chicago.
And they had a big. They did a portrait of Fred Hampton. Not this one, but they had their own.
Yeah.
And they unveiled it here today with the sun.
Wow.
So that's so it was nice because I just got to be taking pictures in front of Fred Hampton with his son. A lot of people took pictures with him in front of this. They were coming down, signing up. Yeah, so he's doing his best.
Legacy. I'm proud of him.
Trying. Some of my Herero and the Nama people who've been basically slaughtered in the genocidal proportions there in Namibia by the Germans. He did his best to struggle to fight it, mitigate them. Oliver Tambo of South Africa, although he was exiled too, he kept money and arms and everything flowing in for the armed struggle against the Boers and the British there in South Africa. Agostino Neto, who was a Renaissance man, or we call him an Imhotep man for all the things. He was a medical doctor, a poet, writer, but also, of course, the leader of the resistance during colonial times. Zabeth, this young girl from Haiti, many people don't know, but at about 9 years old, she started running away. They catch her, they beat her. She'd run away again, they catch her, they brand her, tortured her. No matter what they did to her, she just continued to run away. She finally died after some years, in another stage attempt, basically. Baby of Sierra Leone, this brother was, they had British, that was one of their favorite things to raise money, is to make the Africans put a tax on their huts that they've been living in for, generations. And then, sterling or whatever, and force them to pay it. Of course, if they can't pay it, then you work for us and earn it from us, and then you can pay your hut tax. Just another way of slavery. He says, in my land, you won't do that. So he fought them diligently, voraciously, in the hut tax war. Felix Mume is not a very well-known politician. He's here because I want the children to understand that they can't trust all the people they think they can trust. So he went to negotiate in Geneva, Switzerland, which is supposed to be neutral, blah, blah, blah. They poisoned his drink with thallium and murdered him that way. I'm trying to let the students understand that even if you go to Geneva and have tea, they're going to poison your tea. Sekahune, one of the great South African warriors against the Boers and then against the British. And unfortunately, he was, a lot of things betrayed by his brother, who they turned on him too later after he helped get rid of this one. Nahana, Zimbabwe, the great spiritual leader of the Shemarenga, the war of liberation, first Shemarenga war of liberation against the British. Martin Luther King Jr. of the U.S. We know him. This is usually the only person on the wall that the children know.
Yeah.
Other than Bob Marley. Bob Marley, Martin Luther King. Out of that, the rest of these are completely unknown. Wow. Maybe a local one like Jete, maybe. They taught that in course. Hatshepsut, I like them to know that Africa had female pharaohs in ancient Kemet, uh, 1507, and I talked about her exploits in terms of trade and travel and empire and all of that. Kalitarat, the same kind of thing with the Menarenes, except for this time the Arabs have now come in to Egypt to take over finally after thousands of years of African, suzerainty. 641, they decided again, like the Romans, that they would go south and expand. They ran into Kalitarat and his people. They fought them to a standstill, forced them to a treaty. The treaty lasted 700 years. So,
Wow.
when we had a treaty those days, we had the power to enforce it for as long as we needed to. Now we don't have it. Muhammad Ali, greatest of all time. Of course, I tell him about his resistance. Last George Bush of Senegal, he's a railroad, and he said no, died in battle fighting them. Antonio Maceo of Cuba,
Ah.
he was a great general who fought in the Spanish War of Liberation against the Spanish. Patrice Lumumba didn't live too long, young great leader, but this is my opportunity to tell them about the rubber in the Congo and 10 million Africans who died to a slave trade, and sometimes I have time to show them all kinds of pictures and things with the hands cut off. Slavanika, another one of the great Hehe people from Tanzania, his fight was against the Germans, of course, they finally caught him and cut his head off, and that was a big problem. This was going to be Mugabe. We had kind of started it, but it's going to be a little bigger. The head was a little too small. So the guy who did some of this art was here today to meet some of the art people, and so he started working on this one again for me. Elijah Muhammad, with all of his problems that we all are well aware of, but if you look at it again in terms of nation building, the Nation of Islam is probably the closest thing we've had to a nation within a nation in America. UNIA was a bigger operation, global, but in the U.S., the bank, the transportation company, the schools, the restaurants, pulling all the brothers out and having structure,
Yes.
and that's something we don't have now. Ida B. Wells, of course, anti-lynching crusader, and we show the children lynching pictures and all the rest and stuff. John Akello was a nasty fellow who decided he would, when I say that, I mean he was tough there in Zanzibar, because the African natives of Zanzibar had been under the domination of these Omani Arabs for a long time. And the only way they can get out was a violent revolution that came through these guys. And so they got their freedom, and then they hooked up with Tanganyika to become Tanzania, Zanzibar and Tanganyika. Fela Kuti, the great resistance musician, Zumi of Brazil, and the Quilombo of Palmares, which lasted nearly 100 years after they were able to build their own nations in the mountains away from Portuguese plantations. Nascimento, another one out of Brazil, had him here because in current days he really did a lot of work with the African Brazilian politics, history, culture, and he's an artist in his own right. Sam Nujoma, the only one on here that's actually, as far as I know, is still alive. It's supposed to be all ancestors, but I didn't know that at the time. But of course, Namibia had to strike against South Africa because they were Southwest Africa colonized by South Africa, so their struggle was more internal. But it was against the white power structure all the same. Booker T. Washington, we know people say he is compromised, but I think if you read more about Booker, you see that he did more than give him credit for.
That's so true.
B.B. King, which is my daddy's favorite blues man.
Yeah.
Him and Lucille. So he did his thing. And the great thinking Walter Rodney, one of the most brilliant scholars, thinkers we've ever had. How Europe underdeveloped Africa, grounding with my brothers and some of the rest. But just to hear the man speak extemporaneously, he's just brilliant. Queen Amina, the great queen of Zazu Azaria, House of Queen in northern Nigeria, once again, 500 years ago, led the cavalry, expanded the nation, controlled the trade, did all of that. Manlane of Mozambique, he's gone to school in the U.S. with PhD out of Northwestern and all these great schools. But that didn't matter to him. He had to go back home and fight the Portuguese in his land. So he established Frelimo, the ones who struggled against the Portuguese. He was the kind of the mentor of Samora Machel that we talked about up there earlier. Garrett Morgan, I like for them to know about the inventiveness. You know, remember he invented the traffic signal and he invented the gas mask and some other things. And so the children are always excited to know someone's like that. Franz Fanon, one of the greatest thinkers that we've ever produced out of Martinique, wretched of the earth, black skinned white man. He died as a psychiatrist. He's a psychiatrist. He only lived to 36. He died of cancer. So Chilimbwe, another one's in the U.S. and got his degrees and all of that, in theology and all of that, but he came back to Malawi. I always say he found that the British were as ungodly as they were when he left. So I say put the Bible in the left pocket and the revolver in the right pocket and get back to work. So Sekou Touré, a lot of the Ghanaians know him because he was, when Kwame Nkrumah was deposed, he became co-president of Sekou Touré in Guinea, you know, trying to show at least West African solidarity and Pan-Africanism. Plus, when the French asked him if he wanted to remain in the French, you know, community after the colonization period, he said no, where almost all of the other French colonies said yes. Ahmed Césaire, who is the intellectual godfather, you notice how many of these people are from the Caribbean, you know, so many of these thinkers, and so many of these, you know, so they didn't have big numbers and big land, but they had big brains, and that was one of their main contributions, really. Pan-African thought and action. They not invented, but they started Negritude, which was a French-speaking African Caribbean literary movement, among other things. Samurai Touré, who was easily the best freedom fighter, or I shouldn't say freedom fighter, anti-colonial fighter, which is freedom fighter, that has been produced in West Africa. A lot of the groups who had been overrun by him, he basically consolidated power, and they said, well, he was brutal, but he was able to consolidate power, and then with that power, effectively keep the French at bay for more effectively than anybody else. Kwame Ture, who was our own Stokely Carmichael, another one out of Trinidad. Of course, he was in SNCC and Black Power movement and all the rest. Ended up coming to Africa and Guinea, changed his name, Kwame Ture. Kwame is Kwame Nkrumah Ture, Sekou Touré, took those two and started All African People's Revolutionary Party, and also married to Miriam Makeba for a while too. And then our great scholars, John Henry Clark and Joseph Ben Yakinen. Somebody got a little paint on his chin. And you know, what can we say of Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben? Everybody asks me, where's Mandela? And I say, hey, she's right here. Winnie. Because we know Winnie didn't get the credit she deserved.
That's right.
So she don't get it from us.
That's right.
And we'll let BBC blow up Nelson. He'll get it.
Yeah.
He's on enough white folk walls.
That's getting on all the money.
We got Francis Chris Wilson, who of course enlightened us about white supremacy and the futility of moral appeal to people who don't.
No.
People who don't.
This right here is like a
building. The bottom is going to be a library. The middle is a multi-purpose center.